Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. So this is Sutta class number 4 for Vasa 2022. At least a sort of introduction to the Satipatthana Sutta, the discourse on establishing mindfulness. And I mentioned previously in one of these talks that it's besides the 3 cardinal discourses, and perhaps this one, and then you have this one, you recognize that you understand the principle of this practice, Satipatthana, or the Anapanasati Sutta, then probably you have enough information to practice the Buddha's teachings for the realization of at least the first level of awakening. At least you got the other 3, the cardinal discourses, give you the theory behind the Buddha's teachings. And this one gives you some idea of the practice. So this Satipatthana Sutta is, in some circles anyway, it's very well known. It's not one of the cardinal discourses, but it also is one of the most, ones which is perhaps most familiar, or at least the practice anyway, is most familiar in the Pali Canon. Most of you know what the Pali Canon is. You know the Buddhist teachings from the Pali Canon, which is in the Pali language, Tipitaka. T means 3, so there's 3 baskets. Pitaka literally is a basket. 3 baskets, 3 collections, if you like. The Vinaya Pitaka, Sutta Pitaka, Abhidhamma Pitaka. The Vinaya Pitaka is the collection of the discipline, the monastic rules and procedures. And then the Sutta Pitaka is a collection of the Buddha's discourses, his specific teachings. And then the Abhidhamma Pitaka is a later addition, which is sort of an attempt at a systematic presentation of the teachings. Kind of a scholastic presentation. But the Sutta Pitaka, so mainly we're concerned with, a bit of the Vinaya Pitaka, gives some history of the Buddha, of the Sangha. The Sutta Pitaka has 5 books, arranged according to class of discourse. So the long discourses, 34 long discourses. And there's the middle-length discourses, 152 suttas. Then there's Samyutta Nikaya, which is discourses arranged by theme or topic. And then there is Anguttara Nikaya, which is arranged by number, the 1s, 2s, 3s, up to 11s. And then there is the 5th book is called the Khuddaka Nikaya. That's a collection of, I think, about 17 different books, mostly short ones, like the Dhammapada, Itivuttaka. Probably heard of Dhammapada already. A collection of short verses, very, very significant and very pithy verses. And then there's some comment about them, maybe a story about them. And some of these in the Khuddaka Nikaya is a really a loose, very, very varied collection from there's even the, not only the word of the Buddha, there's also a collection of the verses from the enlightened monks and nuns, Teri and Tera and Teri Gata. It's quite a large collection, and it can be quite inspiring because it's these sort of verses, short verses, summarizing these different, the awakening experience of the different monks and nuns. So some of them are quite poetic, some of them are quite dramatic. Anyway, it's been translated into English. It's available, I think, in the library. I think we have a copy. Yeah. Then there's also the Jataka stories of the Buddha's previous life, more like, if you like, folk tales, fairy tales. When the Buddha was a monkey and when the Buddha was a lion or whatever, quail. If you believe in those kind of things. But anyway, make some light reading anyway. Bedtime reading. But anyway, this discourse, Satipatthana discourse, in various forms, is in virtually all of the Sutta Pitaka. You know, sometimes the verses of the senior monks and nuns, they mention practicing sati. It's also it's in the long discourses, number 22 in the long discourses. This one is in the main one is in the middle length discourses, number 10. And there's a whole section of the Samyutta Nikaya on developing Satipatthana. And it's mentioned in Anguttara Nikaya under the fours for Satipatthana. So it's included across the whole range of the Sutta Pitaka. So obviously it was very popular, or would really recognize the importance of it anyway. So anyway, with that prelude. And then, hopefully you've done your homework, you've read it already. You know something about it, yeah. So this is a practice which is part of the Eightfold Path, Sammasati. But in the first cardinal discourse, it's not actually mentioned how to do it. It's mentioned that it's one of the factors of the Eightfold Path, but doesn't mention how to practice it. But this discourse, middle length and long discourse, they mention the very, very quite detailed instructions how to practice it. And interesting enough, while the Buddha did mention it in the first cardinal discourse, but this discourse is given much later, because it's given to the people in what's called the Kuru country, right? At a place called Kamasadhamma. Well, the Kuru country has been traced by geographers, I guess it is, to the area around modern Delhi, which was quite far from the main area where the Buddha was teaching. Far from Rajagaha, far from Savatthi. So it shows a much later stage in the Buddhist development of Buddhist teachings, where it spread quite far west to the Kuru country. Or maybe he was just going wandering. Maybe he got tired of wandering around the same area and he decided to go on Tudong, way up to the west, to Delhi. You know? Because these people, apparently in the Kurus, the Buddha himself gave several very profound discourses to them. This one, and the Mahadidana Sutta on the dependent origination, is also the area where the Mahabharata was one of the main Hindu scriptures, also happened. So these people were presumably very spiritually advanced. So maybe the Buddha heard these people were, very advanced in their spiritual practice. They would benefit a lot by hearing this teaching. Anyway, it's only mentioned a few times in the scriptures, so he didn't go there very often. So when the Buddha gave this discourse, if you read the beginning and the end already, he made some quite dramatic references to it. For example, in the beginning, he says that this is the direct path to awakening. There's a little bit of controversy over the word direct because it's ekayano mago. So eka means one. So early translators translate it as the one path, the only path, the one path, you see. But it doesn't quite fit with the rest of the Buddhist teachings because there's more than just right mindfulness, right? An eightfold path. So, I mean, personally, I would say personally it's something like more like the primary path. But Venerable, if you want to study the Satipatthana Sutta in detail, this is the best book about it by Bhikkhu Analio. This is his PhD thesis. So you can see he's studied it quite intensely. It's got the discourse plus all his analysis of the various aspects, because sometimes these sayings of the Buddha, these discourses, they may appear, fairly simple on the outside, but when you get into the practice, you find there's a lot of detail in it. You begin to actually practice it, unravel it. Like the first cardinal discourse, middle way, eightfold path, four noble truths. But if you follow that, you lead all the way to awakening. But only one discourse, I mean, of course, the Buddha delivered it to his 5 close disciples who were very ripe to understand it. See? For other people, they weren't quite in the right space for it yet. So they heard it maybe through one ear and out the other. But didn't quite, or as in Thai they say, it doesn't cow jai, doesn't go into their heart, just goes through their head. They got the theory, but didn't get the message, you see. But if you look at it in detail and study it, you recognize there's a lot of information there, actually, if you practice it. Eightfold path. So for some people, practicing the Eightfold Path is a whole lifetime or many lifetime practices, not just 5 minutes of hearing it. So likewise, this sutta, the Buddha claims at the beginning that this is the direct path for the purification of beings, for the surmounting of sorrow and lamentation, for disappearance of dukkha and discontent, for acquiring the true method, the realization of Nibbana. All of those just in this one scripture. Anybody interested? All in one compact teaching here. Yeah. Complete realization of Nibbana. So then the Buddha explains what there's 4 of these Satipatthanas. 4. First I should explain the words. The sati, even though we translated it it's been translated quite effectively, I guess, as mindfulness. But the original word sati means to remember, just like an anusati, like the chanting we do, the anusati. There's sati in there too, but it's a recollection. So to remember, like remembering the qualities of the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, but it's not memory itself. That's more sanya. Sati is to remember, which more refers to what facilitates memory, what brings up, what allows you to remember things. It's ability to recollect, to recall, and most specifically, especially in this case, is used as remembering the present moment when it's developed. Like we can remember, like remembering has different aspects to it. You can remember, a few minutes ago. You can remember years ago, whatever. Can you remember your past life? It's also one of the exercises you can develop. You can recollect your past life if your mind is developed enough. Did I mention that last time? Yeah, in one of the It's one of the three knowledges the Buddha developed, and also other people, other arahants could also develop one of the three knowledges, recollecting their past lives, being aware of the arising and passing away of beings in their own lifetime and previously, and then the ending of the asavas, the outflows. So sati literally means the awareness of the present moment. But there is, so like mindfulness is pretty good general definition, although nowadays it's been used quite frequently to refer to something else. You know, the mindfulness movement nowadays, so it's been a little bit secularized. They don't really have most of them don't present the full range of what the Buddha was talking about with their development of mindfulness, full presence of mind. So sometimes other definitions can be helpful. For example, what this Analayo goes to various references, especially similes in the Pali Canon, to give some examples of how this sati is used. So it's a relaxed and detached observation. Be able just to observe, like full presence of mind. If you're present, aware of the present moment, you don't also interpret it, do you? Interpreting is a second afterwards. Interpretation, like sanya, happens a little bit later. You know, first there is the knowing, and then there is the association. So if you're really aware of the present moment, you're not thinking about analyzing, even interpreting what you see, what you're aware of, you see. And at the same time, it's sort of relaxed, just observing what's there, what's happening. Yes, it's like this. Yeah. So sometimes you may notice there is that faculty available, right? It's like you step outside your house in the morning, what's the weather like? First you observe, then your mind says, oh, I don't like it. Or is it going to rain? Should I get an umbrella? And all the interpretation comes in, you know. But if you just observe first, you get an impression. It's just like this. I mean, these last few days has changed quite a bit, hasn't it? You know, just a few minutes ago it was sunny, then it was raining. So your observations are not, in the present moment, they aren't going to be very accurate the next moment. So this mindfulness is relaxed and detached observation. Sometimes I say, you can say a kind of just being able to observe clearly what's happening. It's aloof and uninvolved. You don't have a personal investment in things. Whether you like it or not isn't the issue. Just seeing what is. Then maybe you can notice, in the background, there is preferences here, So it's for there to carefully gather information, just seeing what is. In the Thai language, in the forest tradition, they talk about Satipatthana. So there is mindfulness first, this awareness of the present moment, and then it could lead on to wisdom. Oh, it's like this, getting that information there first, to get a clear picture, like setting your camera in focus, getting a clear focus of what's actually there. It's a preparation for wisdom. You need the information to get a clear view of what's happening. It provides a careful and balanced supervision of the mind. Like, for example, in the 5 spiritual powers, mindfulness looks over the other ones, kind of supervises. In between, you balance off energy and concentration and faith and wisdom. So mindfulness sits in the middle and observes, how much, is there too much energy, too much concentration? Concentration leads to lethargy and sleepiness. Too much energy leads to restlessness. So you need to find a careful balance there. So mindfulness oversees that. It's also mentioned it's important for the sense restraint, to provide a protective function of mind, to oversee the sense restraint. On one hand, you need to have the senses open. Yeah. But if it's too open, as somebody said, if your mind is too open, your brain will fall out. If your senses are too open, you pick up too many impressions. There's just too many things to see. You get overwhelmed. But we know with sense restraint, if the senses are not restrained to some degree, they're going to be overwhelmed by, it can be unskillful thoughts. On the other hand, if the senses are too restrained, then you don't see what's actually there. So it's like you kind of defocus your eyes. You can't actually see what's there. You just see general impressions, you see. But then the eyes are too open, and there's millions of things, trillions of things to see. Every little crack in the wall here, and it's just too much. So mindfulness is like the focus here. It gives you the right balance. It provides a stabilizing function of mind. And when your mind is present, there's awareness of the present moment. There's also stability in that. This is what's happening right now in this moment. Rather than like your mind going into the past or the future. It's just what the past or the future, what are they but thoughts right now? So be aware of the present moment, what's happening right now. And as I mentioned, it's objective, not interfering with things, not interpretive. So you see that developing this faculty, there's a certain quality to it that needs to be developed, which for most people is, we have it latently. Everybody has some degree of awareness, but for most people that awareness is just it's momentary, and then it goes off into the interpretation and the expectation and the liking and disliking and greed, hatred, and delusion and confusion. But with mindfulness, the mind can stay settled, just observing. You could even there's enough stability of mind, you can even observe the greed, aversion, delusion. Blah, 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 and you still have a place of reference. You just laugh at it. Oh, interesting mind. Some people have teachers have defined it as bare attention. So as you know, awareness at the present moment is also close to attention, what you attend to. See. But there's more to it than just bare attention. I mean, there's sati, and then there's the development of it in a broad range of practices. But one thing about bare attention that Venerable points out, it leads to a de-automatization. Like I just mentioned, that many of us are an automatic pilot. As soon as we see something, we're off in our favorite dialogue about it. Oh, that thing there. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah. But if you just are aware of what's noticed, color and shape, sound, smell, taste, touch, thought, just a thought. Not going into the content of the thought. I like it, I don't like it, it's good, it's bad, it's just there's thought going on. So they can break out of the old habits of mind then, maybe by developing it. So that's sati, that's this faculty of sati. And then, when the Buddha, from that, objective observation, that just kind of is a objective awareness, the Buddha gives a whole variety of different practices to follow, what to be aware of, what aspect of the reality to be aware of. And to be able to practice this, he also said, I should mention the other kind of claim the Buddha makes at the end of the scripture, that if you practice this diligently, For as little as 7 days, you can realize one of the higher paths, either arahantship or non-return. Just 7 days. But that presumably that is sort of like practicing 24 hours a day for 7 days and not falling asleep. So, or being mindful when you sleep. so don't have, it sounds very inviting, maybe tempting. Just 7 days, that's all I need, 7 days. But don't be disappointed if it takes longer. 7 lifetimes. But at least there's a lot of hope there anyway. There's possibility there, you see. And so if we go to the introduction again, the Buddha outlines these 4 Satipatthanas. Again, there's a nice, neat number, like the 4 Noble Truths, 4, easy to remember. Although, if you look at those 4, there's quite a lot of information in there. Like the first one is the body. But the exercise, there's 6 exercises in developing awareness of body. And the feelings, 6 feelings. There's 16 states of mind mentioned. And 33 Dhammas. So 4 becomes a few more. But if I tell you that at the very beginning, you probably can't too much. So we stay with 4 at the beginning and then work from there. And it is, I would say, important to recognize it is a progressive practice, a developmental practice. We can read about this in 5 minutes maybe. Be aware of the body, feelings, states of mind, and dhammas. But to actually do it in practice, which is the important part of it is the practice. Then usually it takes some development. You can say the body, starting off with the body is probably the coarsest of those 4, the body, physical sensation. Everybody's aware of their body to some degree, right? Yeah, there's 6 feelings, 3, and then this one they have 6. 3 feelings. Can you be aware of the feelings in the same way as the body? How about states of mind right now? Are you aware of all 16 states of mind? 33 Dhammas? Okay, let's start off with the body. Or say 1 body, 6 feelings, 16 states of mind. Say 33 Dhammas, start with 1 first. So, keep it simple. Some of us want the ultimate teaching at the end. Right now, actually, you want 33 right now. Let's start with the body when it comes to practice. Start with 1 first. And then just the practice itself, you can have more sati or mindfulness of the body, then it's easier, once it gets some momentum, be aware of the feelings. A little bit more subtle. Then the states of mind are more subtle still. But once sati gains some momentum, gains some energy, then you notice it, sometimes quite naturally you become aware of those qualities then, or those other aspects of our experience. Where initially, I remember there was one monk I knew, and he must have been a monk for maybe at least 5 years already, 6, maybe 8 years already. And he came to me one day and he said, what is a feeling? What's a feeling? Of course, he's a man, Not into feelings. We aren't into feelings. He probably had more awareness of states of mind, but feelings, he just couldn't understand what a feeling was. And I just said, how are you feeling? He says, well, okay, I guess. There's a feeling right there. But he just never, wasn't on his radar, see, what a feeling was. So, probably for women, probably it's easier, isn't it? I shouldn't generalize here. So anyway, in this development, I mean, the most important part is the practice, being able to do it properly. It's not a matter if you can do all 4 of them or not, but be able to get a direct experience of one, that's enough. And for some people, some of the teachers, they say that just using one of these Satipatthana is enough for awakening, full awakening. Others, and even the scripture itself says, well, to realize arahantship, you need to do all 4 Satipatthanas. But in some situations, being aware of one of them includes the other ones. Because being aware, being mindful of the body is mindfulness, which is one of the Dhammas. You see? They all go kind of crisscross each other. See? And then you know the body, and if you know the sensation of the body, very likely you know the feeling with regard to the sensation of the body too. Very likely. In the background somewhere, maybe. But if you give at least initially prominence to one, like developing this exercise in body awareness first, then you begin to notice the other ones kind of also come into focus too. But they come into focus naturally, as it were, as a result of developing mindfulness, sati, rather than us trying to do it, as it were. So the introduction says, what are these 4? In regards to the body, one abides contemplating the body, diligent, clearly knowing, and mindful, free from desires and discontent in regard to the world. So there's these preliminary instructions here. Diligent, clearly knowing, and mindful, free from desire and discontent. So these are like the preliminary foundations that is important for development of mindfulness. Diligence, diligence in the Buddhist sense is more like it's a type of energy, but the energy of continuity. The word used, atapi, I think it is, atapi for diligence, not virya, but atapi is a bit of an unusual occurrence here because tapi comes from the Pali word for tapas, which means mortification in the Sanskrit connotation. But the Buddha, he was accused because the Buddha gave up on austerities. He gave up on this development of austerities, self-mortification, didn't he? Remember that from the first the middle way between self-mortification and sensual indulgence. But that was one of the recognized ways of spiritual practice. And the Buddha gave it up, then people were critical of him, because, self-mortification is discomfort. If you were a tough monk, you do self-mortification. If you didn't, you were a slack monk. So the Buddha got criticized that the monks are pretty indulgent. They don't do mortification, you see. But the Buddha said his mortification was for unskillfulness, not just mortification as an end in itself, but mortifying, as it were, literally mortifying unskillfulness, unwholesome states of mind. So in that way, the Buddha, his idea of energy and diligence was more mental. He did a mental attitude of continuity, continuing with it, not just severe mortifications, but continuity, keep up with it. Clearly knowing, that's close to sampajanya, with clear knowing. Mindful, with sati, free from desire and discontent. Again, you need a certain degree of contentment. We covered that last time. In the progressive path of practice, there was the taking up of developing refined morality, then living a contented lifestyle, and restraint of the senses. So otherwise, if one doesn't have a contented lifestyle, in the background there is simmering discontent, as well as desire for something else, which is not going to be a very healthy state of mind to develop awareness, right? Constantly distracted, especially from something, as mundane as the body. We're aware of the body all the time, but usually only when it's in extreme situations, either very pleasant or unpleasant. But if you have desire or discontent, it's always going to be distraction. So the development, after one has developed diligence, clear knowing, mindful and free from desires and discontent, then this sati is developed over the range of 4 different themes: body, feelings, states of mind, and what's called dhammas, which is a variety of different qualities. And some of these are specifically Buddhist. Others are like the senses, for example. The 6 senses are common to everybody. And then the development, as I say, is if you look at the awareness, developing awareness with regard to the body, for example, 6 exercises. So we start off with something very practical, simple, like the breathing. The next exercise is to the postures, the 4 physical postures, then the physical activities, all the activities one do. So these are just the basic activities of the body, which we do all the time. In some ways, it's very easy, right? Since all of us have these activities going on, they're present with us all the time. We're acting, we're breathing all the time. But how many of us pay attention to them? Yeah, so that's the development part, paying attention to them. These very, very simple aspects of life, which for most people are so boring and so, they're so methodical, they just don't pay attention to it. But unless you're aware of those activities, you don't really understand how the body functions. You're on automatic pilot. So don't really understand how this body functions properly. The next 3 are a little bit more, you can say, not like analytical, developing awareness of the body in regard to the 4 elemental qualities, the parts of the body, and then the corpses, the decaying corpse, which is nowadays, in the Buddhist time, it would be fairly easy to practice that if one wasn't too frightened, go to the charnel ground. But these days you have to kind of analyze it or imagine it maybe. Or I guess one alternative I suggest is to look on the internet for illnesses or something. I came across this almost by accident because I was out at one branch monastery out near the Mekong River, and it was a long way to the hospital, and I had some minor skin ailment. I don't know, some kind of rash or something, or some kind of scratch that didn't heal up properly, and it just, usually things heal up in a little few days or so, but this went on and on and on, so I was a bit worried about it. Maybe it's gangrene or something. Maybe it's leprosy. How the mind can work. But to go to the hospital, it was such an expedition. But I had access to the internet. So I thought, well, I'll just, what do you say? You Google, doctor yourself or something or other, or home doctor or something. So look it up, skin ailments. And it was frightening actually. The skin ailments, all the things that can happen to the skin. And there are pictures, all these kind of blackened skin and scabs and all kinds of things. And gosh, it was frightening actually. And at the end of it, I realized that my little scratch was just insignificant. So forget about it. And then it went away. I think I scared my body into health or something. But I realize that's a very good, it's a very easy way to do the Subha meditation. And it's on the internet, it's right available, easy, so without going to any kind of charnel ground and fighting off the ghosts. Or anyway, there's a special development even in the body, feelings, mind, dhammas, but each one of these also has a sort of a development too. From, like I said, from the body, from the basic activities to a bit more abstract investigation, the 32 parts of the body, the 4 elements or something. Likewise with the feelings and the mind too. And of course, the dhammas go from hindrances, which we've already, in the course of developing mindfulness, you've already come across the hindrances, pretty obviously. Yeah. And then we come to the specialized Buddhist exercises like the 5 khandhas and the 6 senses, then the 7 factors of awakening, finally to the 4 noble truths. And as we know from the like previous times, being aware of the 4 noble truths, really understanding them, can lead to nibbana, liberation, the end of dukkha, if you really understand these 4 noble truths in their total depths. So anyway, some people, again, they ask, do we have to learn all 4 of these? And some of these, in the scripture itself, near the end, it says, developing these 4, Satipatthana, can lead to, after 7 days of diligent practice, can lead to. So it says specifically that developing these 4. Although some teachers just say, well, 1 is enough. And, you can, the point is that if you develop 1 of them to a very advanced degree, like I mentioned, it also impacts the other ones. Just being aware of bodily sensation. You come across then feelings also, different feelings with regard to the sensation. Then if you're really aware, you have deep awareness with regard to the focusing on the body itself, the sensations, you may notice in the background the states of mind arising. Certain sensations, they are unpleasant. You notice aversion arising. You're still focusing on the body as the main object of mindfulness, but that sati is so expansive now, it also brings in the fuller picture, fuller range of reality, as it were. You're still looking at the body, but in that awareness of body, there is much more going on too. We don't realize it right now, perhaps, but at this moment, there are millions of things going on in your mind. Different levels of awareness, of consciousness happening right now. Maybe there are devas here right now. Anybody aware of them? But maybe there are who we just don't notice it, do we? Yeah. Maybe if there were some ajahns here, they might say, oh, those sutta classes on Tuesday afternoon, boy, lots of devas there. They vacate Thailand and come to Australia. So interested in the teachings here. They come from interstate, maybe, anyway, if not from overseas. In the Mahayana scriptures, they usually say, it gets quite flamboyant. When the Buddha is giving a discourse, tens of thousands of devas gather, from the multi-world systems, 84,000 worlds and all this. That's the first opening line of the Buddhist. The Theravadin just said, "Thus have I heard." but in the other scriptures, and then the 10,000 worlds shake, and the devas come down to listen. And but the point is that there are many things going on at the same time in our minds, but we don't have enough awareness to notice it. But just focusing on one, developing awareness with regard to one particular experience, then the mind also, that awareness would expand, become aware of other aspects. So like some of the teachers who say you just need one object, they say, well, with the bodily sensations also have feeling. And then the bodily sensations also, there are also states of mind related to it. Then you recognize the sensations in regard to the Dhammas too. So while they just say keep focusing on one theme, like especially the body, that's the main one that some of the teachers use, then the other ones are included. Whereas the scripture itself and other teachers, they say, well, you should actually develop awareness of all four of them. I would say personally I agree with that, because each one of us has different temperament. So like some people are more kind of bodily orientated types. So they're aware of the body, but maybe they don't have so much awareness with regard to feelings and states of mind, and so they're a bit imbalanced, you see. So while they may have quite good success in the beginning with regard to the body, but then their practice may stagnate because that's only one aspect of their experience which they're focusing on. So because each one of these themes has different characteristics to them, then they have different purposes too. So the commentaries, this is the commentary, not in the scriptures, so the commentaries, which are, the commentaries are written by scholars, so they're more analytical, they try to divide things up and analyze things much more, so they really go to town with this one. So they say that these four different themes relate to different of the five groups of grasping. They do to a certain degree, right? You recognize body, feelings, states of mind. Yeah, there it gets a bit fuzzy, doesn't it? Because in the khandhas, the five groups of grasping, there is body, feelings, sanya, sankhara, vinyan. Yeah. So there's body and feelings already specifically mentioned, same as in the discourse on mindfulness. And then there is the mind, where the khandhas is three parts to the mind, right? Sanya, sankhara, vinyan. So that one doesn't really work too well. But they also say that these different themes relate to different characters. Yeah. For example, they suggest that people who have a lot of lust develop specifically the awareness of body. Especially you can say, parts of the body and the elements and maybe the corpse meditations. And those who have a bit more of a discursive temperament, they think a lot, maybe they should focus more on states of mind because they have lots of mental activity. So that's what they say anyway. And then they relate these four different Satipatthanas to different distortions. Remember what the distortions are? Distortions of reality. Asubha, it's subha, sukha. They go against the three characteristics. The distortions of reality. When we don't have satipanya, we see reality through a distortion. We're looking for subha, beauty, looking for beauty, for example. We're looking for permanence. We're looking for happiness or well-being. We're looking for self all the time. That's how we usually see reality. That's the diluted way of seeing things, but that's why we are unenlightened then. We see it that way. So by developing these four different factors of mindfulness, the body is especially useful for asubha. There's actually they exercise in developing the meditation on the parts of the body to help, or the corpse meditation to help put away the misperception, distortion or misperception of beauty. And then feeling is dukkha. You notice when you develop awareness of feeling, we're observing now the whole range of feeling. See, most people are only aware of pleasant feeling. You notice your bias towards pleasant feeling? Who wants to be aware of unpleasant feeling? Huh? You ever notice that? Or are you a masochist? Most of us only want to be aware of pleasant feeling, not unpleasant. But developing mindfulness, we should be able to mindfulness of the whole range of feeling, you see. So for most people, that means, suddenly you become more aware of dukkha, unpleasant feeling. Huh? If you're really honest with yourself, become more aware of that too. Before we're biased to look at only pleasant feeling, but now mindfulness says look at a whole range of feeling. So there's pleasant, there's neutral, maybe a little bit unpleasant. Not today, but maybe tomorrow. And then when you observe the states of mind, if you can observe the states of mind, then you get a very clear awareness of impermanence, right? See how fleeting your thoughts are. We think mind, I have one mind, right? But observe the states of mind. Whew. Go through the whole range in one day, 1 hour, 1 minute. You got a fast mind. You can be thinking of hell or heaven, the blink of an eye. You can be starving here, and then you go out there to the food table and heaven. And then being aware of the Dhammas, it develops awareness with regard to no permanent self. Because you see that the so-called being is just hindrances, factors of awakening. Where's the person in that? Huh? There's only kind of processes going on, impersonal processes, hindrances, 5 khandhas, senses happening. Where's the self behind all that? Anyway, that was interesting, wasn't it? That's the kind of emphasize the usefulness of the whole range of these 4 different Satipatthana, even though the Dhammas are more complicated. I very, very rarely have heard of people teachers talk about the Dhammas actually. On one of my retreats in England, there was a tradition in this monastery in northern England to give a 10-day retreat every year. And I was abbot there for 2.5 years, so I had to give a few of these retreats. And it was virtually the same people every time. They must have heard the same talk every retreat for the last 5-10 years. I gave the winter retreat, the New Year's retreat in Switzerland for 14 years. Almost the same people. So I had to think of something new to say. So one of these 10-day retreats, I said, okay, we're going to not just talk about body, feeling, states, mind. We're going to choose special. So I think I did, for the body, I did the 4 elements. For the first time, many of them heard about the 4 elements with regard to the body. With the feelings, I think I mentioned the unworldly feelings. States of mind, I forget. But in the Dhammas, I chose, certain of these Dhammas. Like, now be aware of the 5 groups of grasping, for example, or the 5 hindrances. And most of them didn't even know about those things. They've heard this Dhamma talks and teachings in Switzerland for 14 years. but some of them hadn't heard these particular specific teachings, you see. They never got around to them. I mean, a 10-day retreat is hardly time for people just to calm down from their worldly activities, you see. So it's hard to kind of fit some Dhamma into it sometimes, So anyway, so we've got the beginning part anyway. Let's see here. I think I might be able to finish my notes here. Yeah, I will. Okay. So it says that once to develop the Satipatthana. We know what Sati is now. And then we should contemplate. Regard to the body, one contemplates the body, diligent, clearly knowing, etc. Regards to feelings, they abide contemplating. Contemplating is a word, anupassana. Passana is the word to see, literally in Pali. So anupassana means to see again and again. So one is looking at these body, feelings, states of mind, dhammas again and again and again. So that's what in English we'd say is contemplation. And important to recognize this is not, sometimes in English the contemplation means to think about. You say, I've got to contemplate that, But for the exercise here, this is actually directly seeing. Seeing the body, not just thinking about it, but seeing it again and again and again. So what this shows is, the conclusion would be then, we don't really see the body as it really is, do we? No, we don't. We have this body for how many years now, What, you're 30 years old, are you? 35 maybe. Yeah. I know it's impolite to ask your age, but we live with this body for so many years, so many decades, but we don't even really actually know what the body is. Huh? And we think it's my body, but what is this? This is your closest friend for your whole life. You don't even know them. How are they really your friend? So most of us have turned our body into an enemy because we think it should be like this. We think we shouldn't get old. We shouldn't get sick, right? Yeah. When the body gets sick or old, then unless you're really aware of it, you fight with it, struggle with it. When you can actually acknowledge and be aware of how the body really is, you have a different relationship to it. You're going to live now more in harmony with it, and more at peace, more at friendship with your body then. So the Buddha is saying that, we should contemplate the body as it is, contemplate it again and again and again, the body, the feelings, the states of mind, because basically we don't see them as they really are. So it's a little bit of a shock sometimes to recognize that we need to do this. And this is not just so you can become a Buddhist. It's not just a Buddhist exercise. It's for peace of mind, freedom from dukkha. That's the whole point of it. When you really can see how the body really is, then less dukkha, because you're more in harmony with how the body is rather than fighting with it, how it should be, or how I think it should be, or the world thinks it should be, or somebody else's opinion. We can see how it really is, more in harmony with it, less dukkha. Isn't that worth pursuing? Yeah, well, at least give it a chance anyway. Give it a try. Be realized each person for themselves. So, well, I didn't get very far with that, but so anyway, introduction to Satipatthana. So we got to the contemplating part, contemplating body, feelings, states of mind, dhammas. So I guess next week I'll have to continue with how to do that in detail, the actual exercises. So stay tuned.